Yo, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to I Almost Had It. Today we're going to be jumping into another Game of Thrones video. So I'm sure most of you guys know that the final season of Game of Thrones, Season 8, is not going to be released until 2019. With that being said, there's only going to be 6 episodes in this final season, which means we only have 6 episodes left of one of our favorite shows and one of the best shows created of all time. So that pretty much just brings up the major question. With George R.R. Martin creating this amazing world of Westeros, what are they going to do next? That is what we're going to be talking about today. So real quick, before we jump into the video, I just want to tell you guys about the channel notification shoutout. I've done it a couple times in previous videos and it always worked out well. Usually if you win the shoutout, you at least get 10 to 15 subscribers, so it helps out a little bit and it's a way that I can give back to you guys for watching these videos. So basically all you have to do to enter is 1, like the video, 2, turn on channel notifications, 3, subscribe to the channel and all of the channels in the description, and 4, comment below, dang, I almost had it. If you include the answer to the question of the video found somewhere throughout the video, you will have a higher chance of winning. The winner will always be chosen in the following video, so all you have to do is stay tuned. Alright, so let's jump back into the video. So to start things off with, we're actually going to be talking about some of the theories that they could use for prequel ideas for the world of Westeros. I think we're going to break it down into a top 5 list of my favorite ones that I've seen, and then hopefully you guys will definitely leave me some comments with maybe ones that I haven't seen. After we discuss the theories, we're going to dive into what we know so far about the Game of Thrones prequels. So hopefully you guys will stick around for that, and hopefully you enjoy the video. Alright, so at number 5, I think I have to go with Robert's Rebellion. I think that it would honestly be the easiest prequel to do just because you could bridge it to Game of Thrones so well and so easily. Just because it would basically just be providing like a backstory to everything that we've seen so far in Game of Thrones, because of course it all pretty much stemmed from Robert taking out the Targaryen king, the Mad King, and then everything that just kind of happened from there. You would get to see how like Lyanna gets kidnapped by Rhaegar, how like Jon Arryn played a huge role with Ned and Robert, how his father and brother actually were killed, and just kind of how like the Mad King Aerys just ran things. I think it would be really cool. Alright, so for number 4, I think we have to go pretty much back to the beginning with the War of the Children and the First Men. So this would basically just show like how Westeros really became civilized. This is the First Men coming from, I want to say Essos. I should probably be pulling this up as I'm doing this, but I'm pretty sure like they came through like a land bridge in Dorne and ended up meeting up with like the children of the forest. I think they started like chopping down the trees, which were the weirwood trees that were sacred to the children, started chopping them down, and they basically just got into this big war. The children, like they obviously like have magic. You seen them like when they were facing those White Walkers and stuff, when they met up with the Three-Eyed Raven, and basically it was just like magic versus like the First Men with their weapons and superior numbers. What's cool is this could also show like how they created the White Walkers, or kind of what went into the thinking, because I think it was on season 6, like it basically showed them creating the White Walker. Alright, so for number 3, I think I'm going to go with The Long Night. Now, it may be kind of good to get away from White Walkers on another prequel, but I think this would be cool because it would basically show like the first time the White Walkers came. So obviously they mentioned this a lot in the show just because they're prepping for another long winter. It basically talks about how like the First Men teamed up with the Children of the Forest, and a legendary hero was prophesied to be reborn one day after defeating the first set of White Walkers. So I think like getting more into like the prophecy and stuff would be really cool, and it would kind of open people's eyes up who haven't really read the books or anything like that. Plus you can't forget it would show how they built the wall and how they established the Night's Watch. That would be pretty dope. Alright, so number 2 and number 1 are really hard for me to really differentiate on how cool I think they'd be, but I think just edging it out a little bit, we'll have to put number 2, Aegon's Conquest. Like, you pretty much only need a couple words to get excited about this one. Just think about it. Targaryens riding dragons with Valyrian steel blades conquering the 7 kingdoms. Like, it would be awesome. I think this would be another easy one to do just because George R.R. Martin he's talked a lot about Aegon's Conquest. So like it wouldn't take much to kind of fill in some of the little details. But pretty much like they end up destroying everything except like Dorne, I think. So like it would literally just be watching like the Targaryens pretty much just destroy and create total chaos throughout the 7 kingdoms. And for number 1, I'm sure you guessed it, we have to go with the Dance of Dragons. This would be crazy. This would be like dragon on dragon combat. Pretty much the Targaryen civil war over the control of the Iron Throne. This is basically like dragon on dragon, family on family combat that stemmed from a half sister and a half brother fighting over their father's throne and who gets it. Just to like barely scratch the surface, like before it's all over, like dozens of dragons would be dead. Like many people in combat would be dead. King's Landing gets sacked, the Dragon Pit is destroyed in a riot, and pretty much half the Seven Kingdoms is just like set ablaze in dragonfire. So it'd be really cool. But anyways, those are just my top 5 favorite ones. If you guys have any awesome ones, definitely let me know in the description so I can check them. All right, so now let's move on to actually breaking down what we know about the prequels so far. So if you didn't even know about these prequels, let me just kind of run it back a little bit. So it was back in May of 2017, George R.R. Martin announced that there was going to be 4 prequel series being worked on. So when he released the news, he actually didn't give us too much information. But what he did tell us is that they're all going to be prequels. So that means it's all going to be happening before the Game of Thrones. And also that you can't really expect there to be 4 different spin-offs. 1, maybe 2 will be it. What this tells me is that HBO knows they are making a lot of money off of Game of Thrones. So much that they can actually afford to probably film 4 or 5 different pilot episodes and then just pick from there which ones they want to air. So anyways, just in September, news actually broke that Brian Cogman, a veteran producer of HBO's Game of Thrones, he's been there since like before even season 1. He like started out with D.B. Weiss and David Benioff like way back in the beginning. But basically news broke that he is actually working on the show's 5th prequel series alongside George R.R. Martin. So just right there, the fact that they're working on 5 possible prequels is amazing. Like this it's absolutely unbelievable. And just the world of Westeros is so great that they literally could do anything they want with it. Something else that's really cool is HBO actually came out and said that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss will stay on as producers. And of course, George R.R. Martin will always be referenced. So to me, this is great news because I'm pretty sure they previously said that they may not even be too interested in doing any spin-offs or prequels. So this kind of means that like, no matter what time period we find ourselves in Westeros, like what new plot we have, what new characters we have, it's still going to have that raw feeling of Game of Thrones because the 2 top dogs from Game of Thrones is going to still be there. And especially, I mean, you'll always have George R.R. Martin, the mastermind behind all of this, to reference. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be great. All right, so now I'm actually going to read this straight from an article, so if it sounds robotic, that's why. Anyways, it says that all the shows will feature entirely new characters, so don't expect any fan favorites to return, according to The Hollywood Reporter. The storylines likely won't link up to any we've seen on the HBO series already, and Variety reports that Martin denied fan theories that the shows will be based on Sir Duncan the Tall and Aegon the Unlikely, aka Duncan Egg, or center around Robert's Rebellion. Now that's actually really crazy because a lot of people were speculating that the prequel would be Robert's Rebellion, which would make the most sense because that would tie in probably the most with what we've seen so far with Game of Thrones. But at the same time, like, I think it could kind of create a lot of problems because you would see characters that we've already seen, and a lot of times that just doesn't blow over too well. When you're seeing completely different people playing the same characters you're used to, it kind of just, it doesn't really work out too well. So I think that's actually a good idea not to use that one right away. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about these 5 people that they have working on these prequels. Now, we don't have hardly any details about the prequels themselves, but I can kind of tell you guys a couple things that these people have done so you can kind of get an idea of their work. All right, so we're actually going to call this one Prequel number 1. So Prequel number 1 is going to be by Max Borenstein. He's actually a screenwriter for Kong Skull Island, if you guys seen the new King Kong movie, as well as the 3 new Godzilla movies that are up and coming. I think the first one came out in like 2014, the next one's in like 2019, and the one after that's in 2020. And guess what? That's pretty much all the details we have on his. He hasn't even mentioned his in any interview that I've been able to find. So then prequel number 2, we have Jane Goldman, and she is working very closely with George R.R. Martin. So she's actually talked about hers a little bit, so I'm just going to read this article. Jane Goldman, writer of The Woman in Black and co-writer of Kick-Ass and the Kingsman movies, is developing a pitch for a Thrones spinoff. She says, "I'm just writing ideas and outlining some things," she told Digital Spy. "I really can't say very much about it, but yeah, it's all going well. I'm having lots of fun making stuff up." When asked if the show would combine her sense of humor with her love of gory horror, she said, "I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I would say yeah. Those are the things that I love and the things that I like to do. It would be remiss of me not to put them in, so yeah." So for number 3, his name is Brian Helgeland. We really do not have any information about his prequel either, and he hasn't even mentioned anything about it. So basically, he's won a Best Adapted Screenplay Oscar for LA Confidential, and in the same year that he did that, he won the Razzie for the Postman screenplay. Most recently, he was behind the movie Legend, which starred Tom Hardy in dual role as twins. He hasn't talked about the project, but it's actually quoted that back in 2015, he said that television wasn't for him. He says, "It's only in the last 4 or 5 years that that's become an option, but I'm not really interested in TV. I want to make movies, so I'm going to die with my boots on. I don't think I would really put too much thought into that, just because the way that they can direct some of these episodes can literally be like a movie. So I don't think that'll really mess things up too bad. All right, so for number 4, we have Carly Rae and George R.R. Martin. So Carly Rae, a writer for The Leftovers and Mad Men, is working on a prequel idea with Martin. Rae hasn't done much press around her previous projects, or even around this one, of course, but she is coming straight off another critically beloved HBO drama, so the transition would be pretty easy for her. So that's actually pretty cool. She's the first one that I've seen that sounds like she has HBO experience. So last but not least, we have Prequel number 5 with Brian Cogman working very closely with George R.R. Martin. So if I had to put money on which prequel I thought had the best chance of being aired, it would 100% be this one. And this is all simply just because of how long he's been around, the scene of Westeros, George R.R. Martin, and just the Game of Thrones. He's actually a co-executive producer and a prolific writer on the Game of Thrones, so he's just been working with George R.R. Martin. He knows the concept. He knows everything about this. I think it was actually quoted by George saying that Cogman is a great guy and a fine writer, and aside from maybe me and Elio and Linda, who actually run Westeros.org, I don't know of anyone who knows and loves Westeros as well as he does. Now you're talking about like the whole mastermind behind all of this saying that about this guy. So like, I just don't see how he gets passed up, because his concept is probably going to be amazing, and it's probably going to feel the closest to what we're used to seeing as the Game of Thrones, just because he brings the most experience to the table. But again, with all of this being said, we have no details about what these prequels could be. And also, it was announced by HBO that a prequel will not arrive until at least 2020. They don't want to finish Game of Thrones Season 8 and then just be like, oh yeah, coming on at 11 o'clock, we have the new Game of Thrones. They're going to give it a whole year at least before they jump into it. And I think that's also going to probably give D.B. Weiss and David Benioff a pretty much needed break. But anyways, guys, that pretty much wraps up this video. We talked about some possible theories. We talked about the 5 people who are going to be directing these prequels. And yeah, I think that's about all we have to talk about. It's just basically going to be speculation for a while. I don't even know if they're going to come out with a lot more information until the Game of Thrones is actually over. I can't really see them turning attention to a whole different show when this main one isn't even over yet. So it's probably going to be a long time. We're just going to be doing a lot of speculation. Maybe some stuff will get leaked. You never know. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely leave a comment with the answer to the question of the video. That will definitely help you win the channel notification shout out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. This has been I Almost Had It. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.